I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers fade as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Hey, welcome back. It's great to have you joining us today. And I say that with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for finding an extra cookie in the jar. Seriously, though, glad you're here. Today, our deep dive takes us into a foundational text. Lesson 227. It's titled, "This is my holy instant of release." And, if you've ever found yourself caught in that endless loop of replaying stories in your head, maybe it's past mistakes or future worries or just who you think you are, well, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to unpack this powerful lesson and explore how the Course, how it offers this really radical path to freedom from that loop, helping us see beyond the protagonist of our own sort of mind-made drama.
And as always, if anything comes up for you while you're listening, questions, stories, maybe just something you want to share, please reach out. You can email us at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org or find us on TikTok or YouTube. Our handle there is @theworldharmonyproject. We genuinely love hearing from you and learning about your experiences with these explorations.
All right, enough talking from me. Let's jump in. So today we're exploring Lesson 227. This is my holy instant of release. This lesson is profoundly simple, yet incredibly powerful. So let's read the lesson verbatim. This is my holy instant of release.
Father, it is today that I am free, because my will is yours. I thought to make another will, yet nothing that I thought apart from you exists. And I am free because I was mistaken and did not affect my own reality at all by my illusions. Now I give them up and lay them down before the feet of truth to be removed forever from my mind. This is my holy instant of release. Father, I know my will is one with yours.
And so today we find our glad return to heaven, which we never really left. The Son of God this day lays down his dreams. The Son of God this day comes home again, released from sin and clad in holiness, with his right mind restored to him at last. Okay, so let's unpack some key takeaways from that beautiful and really quite dense passage. For me, the first profound insight is just how clearly the lesson teaches that although we thought we could make another will apart from God's, this separation was actually impossible, and therefore it never actually occurred.
Right, never occurred. That's the mind-bending part.
And the profound implication here is, it means it never actually happened. We might believe it happened, sure. We might feel like it happened. We might have built an entire world, our whole sense of self, around the idea that it happened. But in reality, there was no actual break from our source. No genuine departure from our true nature.
And that understanding, it just shifts everything, doesn't it?
It completely shifts the entire understanding of our situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't a crime, it was a mistake. The relief isn't just intellectual, it's this fundamental liberation of energy. Energy that was just tied up in self-condemnation.
Yeah. It reframes that whole concept of original sin.
Totally. Not as some inherent flaw or a dark stain on our being, but as the fundamental error of believing in a separate identity. So we aren't being punished for some terrible deed we actually committed. We're merely waking up from a dream where we thought we did something impossible.
There's no need to atone for something that never fundamentally changed who or what you are.
Exactly. It's just a mistaken perception that can be undone. Simple as that. Well, simple in concept, maybe.
Right, simple, but not necessarily easy to accept. And I'd add to that, a truly critical distinction that Lesson 227 highlights is that our true release comes from recognizing we were wrong about being separate, not from trying to achieve something new.
Ah, that's huge. Say more about that.
Well, it completely reframes our spiritual effort, doesn't it? We're not striving to earn God's love or attain some higher state through arduous practices or, endless years of meditation. Instead, liberation is about releasing an erroneous belief.
So it's less about building something new and more about dismantling something false.
Precisely. And this process of dismantling what isn't true, it isn't about intellectual acrobatics. It's a moment-by-moment practice of gentle observation. So when a thought of separation arises, maybe a judgment, a grievance, a feeling of lack, even just that subtle sense of being alone, instead of engaging with it, wrestling with it, trying to fix it, we simply notice it as an aspect of the dream. A misperception. It's like seeing a mirage in the desert. You don't fight it or try to transform it into real water.
You just recognize it for what it is, an illusion.
Exactly. And this consistent, gentle turning away from what isn't true. That's the Course's unique approach to liberation. It's a constant return to the awareness of our already present holiness. We don't have to become holy. We just have to realize we are holy and always have been. The new state we think we're trying to achieve is actually our inherent reality, just obscured by our misperceptions.
Which leads perfectly into that third core takeaway. We awaken by laying down our dreams of individuality and remembering the oneness that was never actually broken. We never left heaven. Now, this point is so comforting on one level, but also so challenging. Because our entire conditioned existence, pretty much everything we experience, is built on that dream of individuality. So what does it really mean to lay down our dreams of individuality? It's not about abandoning personal goals or aspirations in the world, right? It doesn't mean becoming apathetic.
Absolutely not. That's a common misunderstanding.
Yeah. It's more about letting go of the ego's intense investment in those goals as validators of a separate me. Does that make sense? Like, if I'm working on a project, I can still pour my creativity and effort into it. That's fine. But the joy doesn't come solely from my success as a separate individual. It comes maybe from the process itself, or from shared creation, or just the inherent value of the contribution. It's a subtle shift, but profound. From I must achieve this to be worthy, to I am already worthy, and I choose to engage with this creative unfolding.
That shift in motivation and where the value lies.
And the idea that we never left heaven, that provides immense comfort, because it means we are inherently safe, whole, and loved always, right now. There's no long, arduous journey back from some distant exile, no need to perform elaborate rituals to appease some distant god.
It provides guidance too, doesn't it?
It provides profound guidance, yeah, by reminding us that the path isn't about getting somewhere we're not, but about shedding the layers of illusion that hide the reality of where we always are. It's like a child completely absorbed in an imaginary world in their backyard, believing it's absolutely real, and then suddenly remembering, oh, I'm just in my own safe, familiar yard. The leaving was just a deep immersion in imagination, a temporary forgetting, not an actual departure from reality.
Just the forgetting.
So when the Course says that core insight, nothing that I thought apart from you exists.
Yeah, the idea that we could even think of creating another will separate from God's, it's quite striking when you really sit with it.
It is. And I've been pondering this for a long time. Why is this so incredibly hard for us to accept, truly accept deep down? Why do we cling so fiercely to the belief that we've somehow managed to successfully separate ourselves from our source, even when the lesson tells us, point blank, it never actually happened? There's such a deep-seated resistance.
That's such an important question, and it really, I think, gets to the heart of our human experience. I've come to understand this better by looking at how we organize our experience in the world, literally from day one. From the moment we're born, we're taught or we learn to structure everything around this central I, this separate self that seems to move through time, collecting experiences, and feels like the main character of our lives.
Okay, that makes sense abstractly. But can you give a concrete example, just to make sure we all really get how this plays out day to day?
Sure, okay, when I was growing up, my sister and I used to each recount our day at the dinner table for our parents. Every night, we'd start with, I went to my locker, and then we'd progress through the day. I went to math class, then I had lunch with Maria. Now, at first glance, that seems totally innocent, right? Just organizing events sequentially, telling the story.
Right, that exact conversation is probably happening in thousands, maybe millions of homes today. It's so common.
Exactly. But here's what I'm starting to see more clearly. Even that simple recounting isn't just about describing what happened. It inherently assumes and constantly reinforces a separate self moving through experiences. There's this I that goes from place to place, collecting these moments, owning them. We're constantly rehearsing the reality of this separate main character of our lives. It's not just a casual habit, it's a deep, continuous practice that reinforces the idea that we are distinct, self-contained beings with unique narratives. We're essentially training ourselves every single day to be the protagonist of our own individual story.
And our entire culture just validates this storytelling framework constantly. I mean, think about it. Almost every conversation strengthens this illusion. How was your day? What did you accomplish? Tell me about your trip.
Yeah.
We're always assuming and often celebrating this individual character having unique experiences. This framework isn't just superficial. It's woven into the very fabric of how we interact and understand each other. We literally can't conceive of a conversation, most of the time, that isn't centered around an I or a you or a they performing actions and having experiences. It's like the air we breathe, so ubiquitous so we don't even notice its structure until we consciously try to imagine life without it. From childhood, we're asked about our preferences, our feelings, our achievements, constantly solidifying this sense of an individual self as the source of all experience and action. Think about resumes or job interviews. It's all about the I.
That's absolutely right. So when this lesson talks about how we thought to make another will, it's pointing directly to this protagonist we've created and continually reinforce. This storytelling system we live in, it actually creates the felt experience of being separate. It's not just a thought. The I doesn't just think it's separate. It feels absolutely real because we've been practicing its reality every single day, every hour, almost every minute of our lives.
That distinction between intellectual understanding and the felt experience is so crucial.
It really is. It's not just a concept we grasp intellectually. It's a deeply ingrained sensation, a sensory and emotional reality that has been constructed and reinforced through countless repetitions, moment after moment.
But then you have to wonder, what would experience even look like without this central organizing self? How would we even describe our day without, I went here, then I went there?
That's truly mind-boggling to consider. It challenges the very foundation of how we perceive reality. Instead of, I had coffee this morning, maybe it would be something more like the coffee was warm and the flavor was exceptional. The experiences still occur, the warmth, the flavor, the sensation of drinking, shifting the focus from the who to the what of experience.
Or instead of, I learned something at work today, perhaps understanding occurred or clarity emerged. Imagine watching a beautiful sunrise, and instead of automatically thinking or saying, I saw a beautiful sunrise, the ego's claim of ownership, that little I planting its flag on the experience, is absent.
And that perspective can initially feel like a diminishment of personal importance. But in truth, it's a profound expansion beyond the confines of a limited self. It's like being a single drop of water, totally convinced it's separate and unique, and then realizing it's actually part of the vast, boundless ocean. The drop doesn't disappear. Its true identity is revealed as something far grander and more connected.
That's a great analogy.
And this connects so deeply to why the Course says we exist in a kind of dream state. We're so absorbed in maintaining this character, our personal history, our individual growth, our unique challenges, our past traumas, our future aspirations, that we rarely step back to question whether this entire storytelling framework might just be optional. We invest so much energy into curating this personal narrative that we forget we're the ones writing it.
Questioning it feels almost impossible from within the dream. How do you question the very I that would be doing the questioning? It feels like a paradox. It's like being an actor who's been in character for so long they've completely forgotten their acting, forgotten their true identity off stage. The ego is the very system of thought that creates the I and then fiercely defends its reality. So to question it is to question the foundation of what we believe ourselves to be. And that is inherently unsettling. It can feel terrifying. It's a self-referential loop that seems unbreakable from within its own logic.
But that's exactly what this lesson is pointing toward. When it says, I was mistaken and did not affect my own reality at all by my illusions, it's recognizing that all this elaborate story construction about our separate journey never actually touched who we really are. The stories are like clouds passing in front of the sun. They might obscure its light, they might seem to dim the day, but they don't diminish the sun itself or change its inherent nature one bit. Our true reality remains untouched and pristine, regardless of how many intricate tales of separation and struggle we tell ourselves. It's an unchanging truth that exists beyond the shifting sands of our dreams.
And this explains why the lesson emphasizes we were mistaken rather than guilty, which is such a relief. We didn't do something fundamentally wrong. We just got completely absorbed in our own storytelling system and forgot it was something we created, forgot it was something we could simply set down.
Yes, it's not about blame, not about punishment, but about a simple, correctable error in perception.
No inherent sin, no indelible stain, only a misunderstanding. And this understanding immediately opens the door to true forgiveness. Not as absolution for a real offense, but as the undoing of a false belief.
Which is why laying down our dreams feels like such a profound relief rather than a loss once we start to grasp it.
The relief isn't about giving something up, but about releasing an immense burden.
Exactly. Releasing a continuous act of self-maintenance that we barely even notice we're performing most of the time. It frees up an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy that was previously tied up in defending and polishing this separate identity.
Okay, but here's the thing. When I actually try to imagine doing this, like really doing it, I feel terrified. It's a very visceral reaction. For example, just yesterday, my wife asked me how my new project went. Standard question. And I told her I was very tired, but I could see that I wasn't the only tired one, so I didn't feel as bad about my performance. And in fact, I was proud of my accomplishment.
That's such a perfect everyday example of the storytelling framework in action.
Totally a normal conversation, right?
Completely. It perfectly encapsulates how we instinctively frame our experiences around an individual I as the central actor and experiencer. Our conversation itself becomes a vehicle for reinforcing that I.
Right. But when I imagine telling that story the way you described earlier, without the central I honestly feel completely erased. It seems absurd not to put myself in the center. What would I even say? How would I articulate that experience?
Well, let's try it. It's a useful exercise. Instead of I was very tired, maybe the work brought tiredness.
Okay. The work brought tiredness.
And instead of I didn't feel too bad about my performance, perhaps relief arose when noticing tiredness was shared. Or maybe comfort emerged from recognizing a common experience.
Wait, let's think about what you just said there. Relief arose when noticing tiredness was shared.
Yeah.
But who's doing the noticing? There was comfort in seeing the shared exhaustion. But who's doing the seeing? It feels like you're just hiding the protagonist, camouflaging it.
Oh, wow. You're absolutely right. That's a sharp insight. I was just camouflaging the separate self rather than truly removing it. Even when I try consciously to take out the I, there's still someone implied who's experiencing the relief and doing the seeing.
It's truly incredible to consider how deeply this runs, isn't it? I'm starting to wonder if we can even think about non-dual awareness using our inherently dualistic language.
That's a major realization, and it hits on a profound truth. Maybe we're bumping up against the limits of language itself here. Our whole linguistic structure assumes someone having an experience. So no wonder the ego feels so real and necessary. It's embedded in the very way we think and communicate, the very way we make sense of existence.
The ego isn't just fighting for its own survival. It's fighting for the entire meaning-making system that allows it to think it exists in the first place.
Exactly. Perhaps that's why the Course calls this recognition a holy instant, a shift in perception. It's not something you can intellectually figure out in the traditional sense, but something that is revealed when the grip of the ego's storytelling momentarily loosens.
And now that terror I mentioned earlier makes so much more sense, it feels less like a personal failing. The ego isn't just fighting for its psychological survival, it's fighting for the entire meaning-making system that allows it to think it exists in the first place.
And here's something else to consider that makes this even more challenging, or at least helps us understand the challenge better. It's not just our casual conversations or internal thoughts that reinforce the separate self. Our entire cultural framework validates this storytelling system. Wouldn't you say that almost every social institution we have strengthens the protagonist model? From the earliest days of schooling to the grandest legal systems, everything seems structured around the individual actor.
Oh, absolutely. Think about how news stories are structured. We touched on this, but it's worth repeating. Every single report follows the same pattern. Individual protagonists facing challenges, making decisions, experiencing consequences. We constantly hear local woman overcomes adversity, CEO makes controversial decisions, or student achieves against all odds. Even global events get personalized around individual actors, presidents, prime ministers, activists. If I'm listening to the news on my way to work, every report reinforces that sense of individual agency, whether it's the stock market reacting to a trader's decision or a local community issue being solved by one leader. It's a constant, subtle reinforcement.
Right. We never hear understanding emerged about climate change. It's always scientists discover or activists fight for change. The news literally cannot be reported without separate cells doing things. It wouldn't make sense within the narrative structure we use. That structure requires a subject performing an action, consistently reinforcing the illusion that all progress and change stem from individual effort rather than, say, a collective or universal unfolding.
And movies. Movies are the ultimate training ground for the protagonist model. Almost every film follows the hero's journey. A separate self faces obstacles, grows, transforms, finds love, saves the day. Even ensemble pieces usually focus on individual character arcs within the group. We're constantly consuming stories about separate selves overcoming challenges, finding love, achieving goals. It's like every film we watch is a masterclass in how to be an individual, a unique hero or villain, making us believe that our own lives must follow a similar character-driven narrative.
We become experts at identifying with the central character, internalizing their struggles and triumphs as if they were our own.
Yeah. And this creates a powerful subconscious template for how we view our own existence, which often leads to disappointment when our lives don't follow such a clear narrative arc, or when the hero doesn't emerge triumphant in the way we expect based on the movies.
Which trains us to see our own life as a personal journey with ourselves as the star. But what about religious institutions? You'd think they might challenge this narrative of separation and individuality. Given their emphasis often on unity or collective divine, one might assume that spiritual paths would actively dismantle the ego.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But often, even churches and spiritual organizations reinforce it. We focus on personal relationship with God, individual salvation, your spiritual journey. We pray for my family, confess my sins, seek my purpose. Sound familiar? Even in contexts that explicitly teach unity, it often becomes about strengthening your relationship with the divine, rather than truly dissolving the you that thinks it's separate in the first place. For instance, in my own life, I've noticed how even within group prayers or meditations, the emphasis often remains on individual petitions and blessings, reinforcing the me as the recipient of divine grace. It's subtle, but it's a pervasive reinforcement of the individual, even within supposedly collective spiritual experiences.
And our education system, oh boy. It's built entirely around individual achievement. From the moment children enter school, they are measured, compared, and rewarded as individuals. We ask your grades. What do you want to be when you grow up? Your future, your career path. Students learn to see themselves as separate actors accumulating knowledge and credentials to build their individual lives. Their unique talents are celebrated, their individual struggles are addressed, and their progress is meticulously tracked as their personal journey. This constantly reinforces the idea that success is a singular personal accomplishment, not a shared unfolding. Even when working in groups, there's often an underlying focus on each individual's contribution and learning outcome, rather than the collective emergence of knowledge or a truly shared experience of discovery.
And then, as if all that wasn't enough, social media arrives as the ultimate validation machine for the separate self. It's like the culmination. My life, my thoughts, my experiences, my opinions, my breakfast, all broadcast to reinforce individual identity. Every platform assumes you have a unique perspective worth sharing as a separate being. It's a constant feedback loop of personal branding and self-definition, where your value is often measured by the unique content you create or your interactions. When I scroll through my feed, it's a relentless parade of my friends' lives, my news sources, my curated content, all solidifying the idea that the separate me is real and endlessly fascinating, or should be. It makes it incredibly difficult to detach from the personal narrative when it's so constantly amplified and validated by this digital echo chamber.
It's quite profound when you step back and really see it clearly. We're truly swimming in a cultural ocean that constantly reinforces the protagonist's self. No wonder the idea of existing without this central organizing I seems impossible, unthinkable. The very thought threatens the foundation of our perceived reality, the framework through which we make sense of everything. It's not just a philosophical concept, it's a profound potential dismantling of how we experience existence itself.
Yeah, it puts the lesson in perspective. It isn't just asking us to have a different thought. It's inviting us to step outside an entire meaning-making system, a system that every institution in our society validates and strengthens every single day. And the ego fights that invitation with everything it has because it's fighting for its perceived existence. It's not just a belief system. It's a way of being ingrained through a lifetime of reinforcement. So understanding that resistance, that terror, maybe seeing it with compassion, that's actually the first step toward gently loosening its grip for ourselves and for others.
So, building on that understanding, how about a practical thought experiment? Something you can try today or any day. Step 1, set the intention for the day.
Okay, when you wake up, maybe just decide you'll spend this day noticing how much of the world's storytelling, internal and external, is organized around a central me or you. You're not trying to judge it or change it. That's key, only to see it clearly. Just become a gentle observer of this pervasive pattern. This isn't about criticizing yourself or others, but simply becoming aware of how pervasive this narrative really is. It's a practice of pure, detached awareness, like a scientist observing a phenomenon without interference or personal investment.
Step 2, notice it in media. As you watch TV, listen to an exploration like this one, read a book, scroll online. Observe how impossible it seems to follow any story without individual characters having experiences. See how the protagonist model is built into the very way stories are told. Think about a news report on an economic trend. Even there, it will likely focus on individual consumers or business leaders making choices rather than just the abstract forces, or a commercial, which almost always presents a person benefiting from a product, implying a separate self who needs and acquires. This narrative training is just everywhere in media.
Step 3, notice it in your own thoughts. This one's subtle but powerful. When you're driving, doing chores, working, or even just sitting quietly, listen for that internal narrator. I need to get gas. I'm running late. They should have emailed me back. These are the mind's default ways of keeping itself front and center, anchoring everything to an I. Pay attention to how often your internal monologue begins with I, or refers back to my feelings, my tasks, my opinions. It's a constant, subtle hum that reinforces the feeling of a separate, individualized existence. You'll probably be surprised, maybe even a little shocked, by the sheer volume and persistence of this internal narrative once you start paying gentle attention.
Step 4. Notice it in conversation. When talking with others, or maybe just overhearing conversations around you, catch how nearly every story revolves around someone doing something to someone else, or something happening to someone. And then imagine, just for contrast, how strange and almost unsettling it would sound if a friend said tiredness happened instead of I was tired, or joy arose instead of I felt joyful. This imaginative exercise can be incredibly revealing. It highlights how deeply ingrained the I is in our very means of communication and how profoundly different our interactions would feel without it. That initial strangeness or discomfort you might feel, that's likely the ego's subtle pushback against its own potential dissolution.
Step 5. Catch the reinforcement as it happens. This is the core of the practice. When you notice a protagonist-centered thought or statement, whether it's in your own mind or out in the world around you, just pause for a moment and simply recognize it. Recognize it as another way the separate self-story is being reinforced. No need to rewrite it, no need to fix it, no need to chastise yourself or others. Don't make it another should. That moment of pure, non-judgmental awareness is the practice itself. The power is in the gentle recognition. You don't need to try and change the thought or force yourself to speak differently. The simple act of noticing, of becoming aware of the pattern, is enough. That moment of conscious observation is where the loosening of the ego's grip truly begins. It's subtle, but profoundly effective over time.
Step 6. Link this awareness to forgiveness. This is where the practice truly blossoms into something transformative. By noticing the constant reinforcement of this separate self-story, you're actually seeing the root of all grievances, all conflict, all judgment. The fundamental belief that we are apart from one another. That's the core error. Forgiveness in the Course isn't about condoning a specific act or saying something bad was actually good. It's not about that at all. It's about gently loosening this core belief in separation. So every moment you catch the me lens at work, whether in yourself or observing it in the world, you're taking a step toward releasing the illusion that fuels judgment and conflict. When you see that another's actions, even hurtful ones, stem from their own deeply ingrained, mistaken belief in separation, just like your own, it naturally disarms your judgment. You're not saying what they did was right, but you're seeing it as an error of a dreaming mind, just like your own mistaken thoughts. This awareness undermines the very foundation of grievances. It dissolves the us versus them mentality by revealing the shared dream we're all caught in, and it opens the door to compassion for both yourself and others. That is active, moment-to-moment forgiveness. What might you discover about your own inner landscape and about the nature of reality itself if you truly allowed yourself to believe, even for a moment, that you were never separate from love?
That's a beautiful place to pause. Thanks for spending this time with us on this deep dive. We really love walking through these lessons together, exploring them with you. And we'll be back tomorrow with the next one. See you then.